Okay. All right. I guess we're still on line item number 1, detailed line item budget for DA's office. I think what we would like to see is, and I understand you've got 484, and I'm just for salaries.
494.
Or 494 for salaries, whatever it is. We would like to see, is that 10 employees, is that 8 employees, is that 6 employees, is that, how does that break down?
I will give that to you. In fact, in some of the cover sheets, I tried to explain what the staff allocation was in the narrative. So I will do that. I will go back and, I mean, I still think it's a line item budget. If you want some more detail, I will give you the detail. But let me make 2 statements, if I could. First of all, I have confirmed that the county commissioners gave me $63,000. My mistake was when we had the conversation, because I remember part of the 33,000 was for the employee who we had hired on because of the sheriff's department not being able to do e-discovery. And at the hearing, I remember them asking the sheriff if he would continue to give up that 33,000. So I thought I was just getting 30,000, which was in the resolution, but the resolution is in fact 63,000. Maybe it's an admission against interest, but it's no wonder why my wife handles the book in my family as opposed to me. So that's one statement. Second statement, I've just asked Robert to tomorrow to engage an auditor to do a 2017 audit. I won't withdraw the pending exemption until I have an idea as to when that audit will be completed. Much the same, we will provide the same information we did in for the 2016 for the 2017 audit. I will assume that responsibility. It's going to be about $5,000. It may be a little more if I ask for it on an expedited basis. Ms. Courtney understands accountants don't work for free, and sometimes when they have to do something on an expedited basis, they're going to do that. I will do that, notwithstanding the right to have the exemption, which is still pending. But as I said, I'm not going to withdraw the request from the state auditor until I know when that is going to be done.
Let me ask
in terms of each of the items,
let's address that one. It's a very detailed what he has to submit to the state, right? I mean, if it's not an audit, it's very detailed.
it's the same as the one report.
The auditor actually uploads it once they actually work with him. You know, if he hires an auditor, they actually submit it to the state auditor.
But what I'm saying is what he's got pending up there right now,
yes.
would that give us the information we need in saving the $5,000?
No, because what is pending is the exemption. And so
the statute says you can't get the exemption without providing that exact information to the state.
I'm telling you what is pending is that we are in discussion with them as to what they need for the pending.
There's no discussion. Statutes are clear and dry. Clear cut.
I am talking directly to the state auditor, whose authority is the one, and they're the ones who are giving us the information, not you, the state auditor. Okay? But notwithstanding that, I'm telling you we're going to commission the audit in the same way we commissioned it for the one you got for 2016. And that will move out the question.
And 2016 was Mr. Rubelin's audit, correct?
But we had to submit all the financials of 2017 for that audit.
Yes. He had with the auditor that he had hired for his books, right?
We're probably going to go back to Mr. Cutler, who is the one who submitted the audit. So that will take care of any issues. I have no problems with doing that. I don't expect any problems with the audit.
Can we get a copy of that?
You will get a copy. Well, first I'll submit it to the state auditor. That's who I'm obligated to submit it to. And much like I did today, and it's your request, I will submit it to you.
Well, it's to the people of this community. I mean, that's why we need it. That's why I'd like to have it.
The statute
to protect you as well. To show people what you know with them.
As I said, I have no problems with doing it. There is nothing to hide. Every dollar is accounted for, will be accounted for.
Now, on a side note, Mr. Blotcher was in Trinidad for the county fair, and he was running for Attorney General, and I believe he met with you. And I spoke with him briefly at the county fairgrounds, and I asked him this. He's a district attorney now, and I asked him, how often do you show your Board of County Commissioners your funding? And he said to me, every month they see every check I write. I would like to see that from you as well.
Every single check,
Except for victim advocates because of the privacy issue. But yes, his commissioners see every check he writes every month.
you'll get the audit. Based upon that audit, if you have a
That
specific
would be the same
question,
thing,
then
correct.
I'll answer any question. I mean, if you want to pay for,
Okay, well, I thought you had already started the other process. You hadn't even started that process, so I guess you
No.
could go either way.
no. I have started the other process. I haven't started the other process. I've started the process. What I'm saying is that the exemption is in process. We're in discussions with the auditor's office on the exemption. But notwithstanding that, I'm just going to do and pay for a complete audit. When that audit is done, it roots out the exemption.
Well, Steve, and I was wrong because I thought that you had, you got the extension or the exemption, but you hadn't provided that's what you were doing right now is providing all the financials to them, but you hadn't even done that, so you're just in the,
What we
in the
did-
early beginning stages of talking.
We had submitted the request for exemption. We're in discussion with them as to what they need for the extension. We just got the communication within the last couple of days on that. Okay?
Okay, and you said that you would give us a detailed line item budget, so thank you.
Well, I will give you the detail that's behind the budget that I've given. Okay, because the budget only calls for salaries. You want to know the underlying information below that?
Kind of like this one here.
It says their salaries up at the top, Henry, and then it shows every employee.
That's a line item budget. So I think we gave a sample of that to you. Right. That's an old budget.
Hold on. Okay, if you look at page 19 of your budget,
We don't have copies of it. I believe that's 2017.
I need to find the right pages.
That's 2017.
No, I have your 2018.
Okay.
You don't have an index, so you haven't defined.
It'll be in the Animas. Page 3 of the Animas.
Since we're all on the same page, why don't you give me that?
No,
Oh, you,
okay.
This is 20.
Okay, I'm familiar with 2018.
Yeah, okay.
If you look at, on 2018, if you look at the budget for the district attorney's office, and if you look at page 27, the budget for the health department, which like the DA's office, is in the 3rd Judicial District. It has, and I've given this to you before, it does not have anything underneath personnel or anything else. It has one simple line item.
But she submits detail to us on our budget, we only show what we allocate to her. But she submits us an actual budget and her audits, and she submits everything to us when we do the bi-county meeting every year.
And I'm telling you that I will submit the information to you. But according to the way you budget by line, bulk line for the district attorney's
Right.
office and for the health
We
department.
do, because it's an allocation, so we only allocate money to each department.
I understand. I'm just telling you that, the example that was given to me is not the example here. Okay, and I understand, and I will give you all that information. But my question now comes to, what's happened to the $85,000?
Are we done with the number one and number two, do you think?
I believe so.
Okay, so, to clarify, you're gonna do line item budget.
I'm going to give
And
you
you're
the
gonna do,
underlying detail
and you're gonna
to
do
the budget I've given you.
And you're gonna do an audit for 17.
I said that.
Okay. I like
I will
progress.
still use for line item purposes the category, but I will provide you the underlying detail. Because that's how we do the budgeting across the district.
Thank you. Okay, number three, just so that everybody in the room understands what discussion regarding district attorney's supplemental budget request for an additional $85,000. The $85,000 was appropriated in last year. It's already been appropriated. We were given the $494 and the $85,000 for additional public safety was allocated. And Ms. Cogley, would you?
Thank you, but I will tell you categorically, the way the voters approved 1A, first draw on the money is the district attorney's office. Until the district attorney's office necessary expenses are met, it is inappropriate to use that money for any other department. That's the way it was written, that's the way the voters passed it, and until we resolve the issue, because you never asked any questions for
That's
any
why
information.
it was so imperative you were here on that date.
Exactly.
Because we didn't know if they were gonna come in extra money or less money. It was an estimate, exactly what it was, an estimate of $580,000. Thank God it's more. But that's a Tabor issue. But let's back up to the being here. As commissioners, we can't allocate money over a certain amount. What we were doing was being careful not to overspend any estimates that, and what if the revenue didn't come in and the revenue was allocated to you and the half cent didn't generate that much. That's where it comes into play for Board of County Commissioners being transparent and being very cautious and careful how we allocate funding that we don't know how much it's going to be. This was a first-time deal. It was a first-time both ballot measures passed. We don't want to go and overstep our boundaries the first year until we have a set amount of, just like I do in my business, of futures, basically what I call them, and how previous sales are going to be and how the previous revenue is going to be.
My point is, the estimate was 580. You only appropriated 494. You did not meet the necessary expenses for the district attorney's office. It was not
necessary
lawful.
expenses.
Let me finish. It was not lawful for you to appropriate the money away from the district attorney's office to other law enforcement offices. That is the way it's written. When you meet the necessary expenses for the district attorney's office, if there is money left over, then you can appropriate to other departments. But that's what the voters passed, and that's what you were obligated.
But in your own words, what I played earlier, you said exactly that you have to submit a budget to the Board of County Commissioners, a necessary budget, and they have to approve it. If they approve it, then you will move forward with administrating those funds. That's how the state statute works, Henry. That's why there's a Board of County Commissioners, to oversee all public monies, including this one. And the way the state of Colorado sees 1A, they find it as as just a basic tax, general sales tax. They do not find it because that statute that you wrote the bill under was removed from it before it went to the voters under public safety. It is not on the ballot anywhere.
I will tell you that the appropriation law, including 20-1-301, and the case law with it, says you must first meet the necessary expenses. If there is a disagreement, and you must specifically state what is not a necessary expense, I am entitled to go to court to have a court resolve that issue. You are not allowed to spend under 1A any of the 580 until we resolve that issue. You did not. You only passed a budget of 490. You did not meet your obligation to say what necessary expenses were not demonstrated. Therefore, you could not have used the 85,000.
But
First of all, you can't charge a 25% surplus. That is not authorized by 180. That's a $25,000, 5% surplus. Sir, you could not appropriate to any other department until we resolved what was a necessary expense.
which once again, you weren't here for. And that's why we did what we had to do.
No, you did not have to do it.
Okay, we could have just not set your budget by state. We have to have that in by
You
December
could not
11th.
appropriated the $85,000 anywhere else until we resolve that issue. And I told you, and we continued the meeting in November to December with your agreement. You had already spent the $85,000 before we got into December, is what you're telling me.
It was allocated for 2018 budget to other entities. You want to explain where it went?
I don't care where it went. I understand. I understand it went to, as I see, other public safety agencies, but only after the necessary expenses of the DA's office are first satisfied.
You know, we're probably at an impasse.
I understand, but I mean, there is no $85,000 to give to my budget, is what you're telling me,
That's right.
because you allocated.
We allocated to other public funds, other public entities, safety entities.
I understand.
Yep.
Make a motion to deny supplemental budget of 85,000.
Roll call.
Commissioner Walter? Commissioner Walter?
Yes.
Sorry. Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Lowry?
Yes. Discussion regarding district attorney's supplemental budget request for actual revenues collected above the 1A estimate. And I guess when I saw the 774 budget, one of those that you submitted, 774, that is probably what you were alluding to, is you
Right.
thought? Okay.
I mean, first of all, I've tracked, Ms. Coverly has given me the money, by my projection, by the end of the year, 1A will generate approximately $900,000. Correct?
I can't tell you, I don't know.
In the first month, it generated $77,000. In the second month, it generated $74,000. Third month, it was back up to about $77,000. We've gotten the figures through June. So if you
I
check,
don't have them in front of me,
but
so.
I understand it's well in excess of $774,000. Correct?
Like I said, I don't have the figures in front of me,
Well,
and I don't want
I
to
understand.
say
No,
something,
I
I don't have
understand.
them in front of me, so sorry about that.
But the trend seems to be suggesting
We
that. I know
do
you
have
need to
access,
the actual.
we do have access.
What do you intend to do with that money?
What we're gonna do with that money is hold. Anything over 580, anything over 580, we're putting in a separate account till we see whether Tabor says we have to give it back or not. And so we're setting that aside, and we're setting aside the other two.
So you will not appropriate it to any other thing? That answers that.
What's that?
That answers that.
Yeah, it's set aside. Everything above 580 will be set aside.
You're doing the same with 1B. I understand you're being consistent between the two. And we do have a difference of opinion as to whether or not the Judge Kane opinion, which ruled in favor of the county commissioners, where that is. I understand.
Need a motion on discussion regarding district attorney's supplemental budget request for actual revenues collected above the 180 estimate.
Make a motion.
Second, deny, or
Maybe not.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulder,
Yes.
Commissioner Lowry.
Yes. Discussion of how estimated proceeds of 1A were budgeted and appropriated for 2018. And I think
You've answered that.
We've answered that. So
Yes,
I
thank
need-
you.
Okay. Update regarding additional office space. I know you're needing other space, and we were told you at one point. I don't know, is that cleared out? Is Dixie's stuff cleared out?
I asked Paul, but I believe so. I think it's available.
I'm pretty sure about it. There might be a table or something in there, but I think it's ready.
But do we have some other requests for that?
Yeah, and when we discussed that earlier about finding more office space for Mr. Solano, it would have been maybe temporary if we ever got to it. What happened is, the CU Extension office is also needing space as well, so it's kind of up in the air right now for that. Until we probably have more discussion on it with CS Extension. We were working on that, we were cleaning it out, and I think everything stopped when you submitted your letter to the newspaper threatening to sue us. And the communication chain broke down since then. I haven't talked, both offices haven't spoken with each other, and that's where it was left. So,
As soon as you can let us know. As soon as you can let us know. As you know, and former Administrator Fraser demonstrated, we're woefully overcrowded. Probably the most overcrowded office in the building.
yeah, I'd like to make a statement, if I may. Mr. Solano, when you submitted your lawsuit to the citizens and not to the courts, you attached your accolades, your resume, how great your career has been. I'm not denying that. I'm not saying anything to that other than if you were able to do all this, and you did everything you did with 177,000, and you get 180% increase from the 177 to the 494, then you start dropping cases and blaming the commissioners, and even in your documents, why you're dismissing the cases because of the commissioners not funding you. I find that a big disgrace for your office and for the community, for the people. Especially when none of this had to happen in 2017. You said publicly that you didn't drop any cases that were, of course, viable to prosecute. Having said that, and having the issues we're having with you, lack of getting reports that we needed regarding that one case we discussed, we've been asking for an FBI report for over a year now, and lack of getting that to the commissioners, lack of transparency here, having this public feud with us, bad-mouthing us. I'm at the point where I think you are overstepping yourself with working with the community, with working with the citizens, and they deserve better. They don't need scare tactics of having to drop cases. A lot of them were drug cases. Some of those drug dealers probably got someone's kid stuck on something, and now they're in bad shape or dead. But to blame us for that, and traffic cases and DUIs and that for when you can't do your job, I really believe that it's time for a change, and I would have many requests from people to ask me to ask you for your resignation.
Commissioner, I probably have many times more people who step up and talk to me about the work we're doing. As I said, you asked the Chief of Police, you asked Under Sheriff Navarrete, you asked the Probation Department. We are doing more than the office has ever done. I explained to you why in 2017 I didn't dismiss cases. In March, I told you I was going to bring 1A. I also said I was not going to be dismissing cases because the office's reputation was bad. And I was going to demonstrate in 2017 with less than adequate resources that we could do the job. And we did that because, as I said, I worked more than 14-hour days. I worked every weekend. And I did that because we didn't have money, because I went in good faith to the people. And the people voted 1A. And they had voted 1A in 580, which is what I should have gotten. When you didn't appropriate it, I can't keep up the pace. We cannot keep up the pace. and there's no reason to keep up the pace. And I asked for my budget to be put on the June agenda, and what did I get? It wasn't on the agenda, Robert's Rules of Order, you can't take it up. You had already spent the $85,000. It is unreasonable to expect us to work the prosecutor to make up for a lack of a prosecutor when you had the capacity to fund us properly. And so I told you I needed the money, and if you weren't going to appropriate it, we were not going to keep up that same pace. So I didn't lie to anybody. I didn't hurt anybody. The problem is the standards show that we are woefully underfunded to prosecute the volume of cases we are handling. There was no reason for you not to appropriate the money. There was no reason in December of last year to not work this out so the 580 could have been appropriated and I could have hired a prosecutor. I can't hire a prosecutor without the money. I will not jeopardize the quality of the cases. As it was, the evening before is when we have to file charges that we're filing charges. Under the extreme volume, 30% increase, and then another 30% increase. We are barely able to keep up. And when we could not keep up any longer, because the money was there, it should have been appropriated, the next appropriate thing, because I am not going to be in the situation of my predecessor and have my license or any of the prosecutor's license in jeopardy. We cannot manufacture and change the work we do except by controlling, if we don't have the staff, the volume of cases we prosecute. It has pained me to have to do that, but I did it as a last resort. And as I told you, my predecessor, without being public about it, dismissed many more cases than I ever dismissed. Plea bargain down cases, many more than I've ever did.
Once again, Mr. Rublet is not here to defend himself.
I am telling you, I can see that from the record because I see every criminal history. Page after page that I see on every felon that I prosecute. Felony cases dismissed. Felony cases, plea bargain down to misdemeanors. I see it, I know it, I have my experience as a prosecutor to know that that was the case. I don't blame him. He was put in the worst situation than I was put in. And he suffered his license under supervision because of that. I will not have my 44 years of stellar prosecution and other background be put at risk because you all cannot follow the 1A mandate, because you all won't fund cases and fund the prosecutor so I can do it. That's the only control I have, is to control the volume of work we do. And I stay awake at nights worrying about those very cases that you talk about. I don't like doing it, and in fact I'm in the position where I will be laying people off now that you're not going to give the $85,000 so I can hire a prosecutor. People I need. People that were on staff doing good work, underpaid as it is. So I'm not to blame. I'm not using any scare tactics. You closed county offices 3 days a week. That was no different than what I'm doing to manage the work that I can do. It is ridiculous to say that I am terrorizing the community. It is offensive. It is wrong.
We're going to open it up for any public comment. Is anybody, and we got 2 minutes.
No, I hope I can do 2 minutes. My name is John Barclay. I'm an attorney in Trinidad, and I have the fortunate being to work as a district attorney in Trinidad. And I had the fortunate ability to work with Luis's father back in 1977. In 1977, Luis's father had 3 full-time deputy district attorneys and an assistant district attorney, and added me to that amount. He felt at that point in time, over a period of time, that their funding was inadequate way back then. We actually called a grand jury in 1978 of citizens of Los Angeles County, 24 citizens who sat as a grand jury. Commissioners were called in front of that grand jury, and that grand jury eventually wrote a report saying that the district attorney's office was historically underfunded. That report was never released because of the law at that time. In 1984, or in 1983, or during that period of time, Luis Sr. actually stopped prosecuting cases in the county court because of a lack of staff. So this is not something new.
Do you have documentation on that, Mr. Barkley?
I'm sorry?
Do you have documentation on that?
I don't have documentation, but I was there.
Dad's dead, so, he's not here to defend himself either.
I'm not asking you to defend your father. Your father was a great man who is one of my heroes. What you're looking for, and then what I can see, is to micromanage the district attorney's office. In 1984, I went to a budget hearing with the commissioners then. At that point in time, I had asked that a assistant district attorney be raised from $33,000 to $36,000. A county commissioner at that time said no attorney is worth $36,000. That attorney is Franklin Diazar, who has provided this community with much more than $36,000. In 1993, I filed a lawsuit in the court here claiming that I was underfunded. The court ruled in 1983 that there was underfunding and ordered that it be appropriately funded. I commend Mr. Solano for bringing forward the 1A. He took a difficult situation and put it to the voters, and so in a sense took it out of your hands, and the voters approved that. I'd like you to disclose publicly how much money 1A and 1B has incurred at this point in time, and I find the ad hominem accusations offensive.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Sarah Jane Roulette. Yes, the DA's budget was underfunded when Frank was in office, and it was very hard to make ends meet. I find Mr. Solano's comments truly offensive. You can each contact Frank at any point in time to find out how many cases were filed in both counties. Frank at one point was in charge of 4 courtrooms by himself because the deputy DAs had quit because they could get better paying jobs. But Mr. Solano's DAs are paid, it seems like, fairly adequately now. He was supposed to advertise for a deputy district attorney for Huerfano County, and I do get the Huerfano World newspaper. And it became obvious he wasn't advertising for that position. He has been in office for 20 months and is still blaming Frank for his problems, and I'm very tired of it. Frank worked extremely long hours. He worked 12 to 14 hours a day at least. He worked weekends and holidays. The only day he took off was Christmas to go deliver meals in the morning at the soup kitchen. He took 2 days to fly our son out to college his freshman year. That was the only vacation Frank took, or the only time off he took. I'm tired of our family being ridiculed, and I think if you want any other information from Frank, please contact him. But Mr. Solano is not accurate in the cases that he states, because I know that for a fact. And also, he also states it cost him a lot of money to get witnesses in here to testify. He is reimbursed for that. He's not telling you that. He's getting money for the victim assistance positions. He's not telling you that. He gets mileage for people when he has to bring them in and their hotel rooms and everything paid. He has to pay it up front, but he does get that back. And at the Colorado District Attorney's Council, they did inform him how to do a budget. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Robert Abadaka, and I'd like to respond to Ms. Rublitz's statement. When I first started working for the DA, my opinion of Mr. Rublitz was what was in the paper. And the paper didn't shine a good light on him. But after working in the DA's office and listening to Mr. Solano, I've heard nothing but good things about Mr. Rublitz. How he worked under hard conditions. And the only thing that I see that Frank uses with Mr. Rublitz is his bad conditions that he worked under. The low budget and all those type of things. But I've heard him say nothing. And in my opinion, I have changed my opinion from what I had heard in the newspaper and had nothing but respect for the hard work that Mr. Rublitz has done. Thank you.
And I'd like to second
Pardon?
that. And I would like to second that. Frank worked under very difficult conditions, and I know he worked hard. He worked for me, and he was a good lawyer. But if you don't have money, you can't do it.
Anyone else?
My name is Tina Wheeler. I work for Mr. Solano.
Speak up.
I work for Mr. Solano. I'm very happy and proud to work for Mr. Solano. I have never heard him say bad things about Mr. Rublitz. And again, seconding what Mr. Apodaca said, it was that he worked under very difficult circumstances. I'm a citizen of Los Angeles County. I voted for 1A. I hate to see what's going on with it right now and the arguing that's going on with it. The money is not being spent the way I, as a voter, thought it would be being spent. Mr. Solano is a very dedicated and loyal public servant. Everybody in his office, I feel very confident in speaking for all of them. They respect him, they enjoy him, and they are very loyal to him. He's a very, very wonderful man to work for, and we are very lucky to have him as our district attorney. Thank you.
Would you say your name, because I don't think we got it.
Tina Wheeler.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I have a motion to adjourn and then take about 10 minutes and go into a work session.
So moved.
Commissioner Moulton?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Loudon?
Yes. We'll take about